Right, recently we've been talking about Civil War forts that have been lost to history. We've been to Whitey to look at Hopton's work, and we believe we found the site there. There's archaeological evidence. Last time we went to Manamead Avenue, where we found a royalist fort in somebody's garden called the Mount. Today we're at Houndiscombe Road. Right, we're at the junction of Sutherland Road with Houndiscombe Road. And this little port has got some secrets to reveal. You wouldn't think this little park, very close to the centre of Plymouth, was the site of slaughter and bloodshed back in 1643. Right, where we are is in a small park, as I said. If you were here in 1643, ahead of you would be the main Plymouth defensive line running from North Road west to Mount Gould Road, what is today Mount Gould Road. Now you could see from here Magdalen Fort, which is now Plymouth High School for Girls, right on top of North Hill on your left. To your right would be another major earthwork, Pennycombe Quick Fort, which is where the railway station is today. Now the Royalists were very clever, if only they'd done more with their advantage. What they did on the night of December the 20th, 1643, a cold rainy night, 200 Royalist musketeers left their fortifications on the north side of Mutley Plain, marched down using hedges for cover and the darkness, came down as far as Houndiscombe Woods and made their way up here to this point, this area, which was within pistol shot of the main Roundhead line in front of us. Now these 200 Royalist musketeers used the rain and the wind to build themselves a fortification here, a small earthwork. Wasn't very high, but only a few yards away were the Roundhead guards. How they missed that, I don't know. And I think Colonel Gould, who commanded the defenders in this area, or the whole of the town, was infuriated that they missed this fort going up in the middle of their lines, if you like. It was dangerously close to the outer line. If they'd have moved forward with a bigger force, they could have snapped Plymouth's defensive line, and the war would probably have been over for us, because Prince Maurice would have sent more men. The fact that he didn't is a mystery of history. Now when the lookouts in the morning at dawn saw these Royalist soldiers and their fort, they were horrified. Colonel Gould came up. He organised an attack by some of the Magdalen garrison. 60 men of the Magdalen garrison were sent in right away to try and retake the fort, because he knew if Maurice had reinforced it, we would be in trouble. The attack failed. He sent another attack in. He gathered more troops together from other forts, sent them forward, failed. Now a lull occurred for several hours in which Colonel Gould gathered even more men. He was worried, he was anxious that, like I said, Prince Maurice sending more men up. Maurice, for some reason, didn't do this. So the third attack went in. It got over the wall. There was hand-to-hand fighting, but the Royalists were ousted again. Finally, he got fresh troops together and launched one final assault on the morning of the 21st of December. They came charging over. They overran the defenders this time. There was hand-to-hand fighting, musket butts, feet, teeth, anything they could use. In fact, there was blood. The next day they found blood on the walls here in the frost. The Royalists were forced to flee. They were running out of ammunition by this time. They only had limited ammunition for their muskets. They were running out. So those who didn't surrender fled back down to Houndiscombe Woods. And at the end of the day, the Royalists were fortunate. Gould wanted this to happen in the daylight. He said if they kept that earthwork in the evening, Prince Maurice would have undoubtedly reinforced it. But their opportunity was lost. The Royalists had come, they dug in, they fought bitterly for about 4 or 5 hours, and then were forced to flee. They had no support. So fortunately, the Roundheads won the day and Plymouth was saved. Just to reiterate, we're in the park, looking in the direction the Royalist musketeers must have looked. To your left, in that direction, 4 minutes walk away, the Magdalen Fort, Plymouth High School for Girls. To your right, 5 minutes walk, Pennycombe Quick Work, another massive earthwork, where the railway station is. In between, just in front of North Road East, the defences ran along to protect the military road and connect the two major forts. There would be gun emplacement here, gun emplacement there, hedges, little earthworks gone up. So this fort was a direct threat to Plymouth's main outer line. Even today, if you look at it, it's such a good place for an advanced fortification. You're less than half a minute from the main royalist line here, so you can imagine why Colonel Gould was so worried. But being only 200 musketeers, it wasn't enough. Casualties for this affair, this bloody affair, were reported by the Roundheads as 20 killed, 60 wounded. Numbers of the wounded would succumb to their wounds and die and be buried later. The Royalists were said to have lost 100 men killed, wounded and missing. Most of those were probably captured. And casualties are always reported by the victors, so their losses might have been even less. Because when the attack was overwhelming, most of them would have fled. So probably casualties were about equal. Doesn't sound many, but that's 20 families who lost a loved one and another 60 whose menfolk suffered terrible injury. I've got a few names if people are interested in it. One is a man called Samuel Hart, who was mortally wounded. He was a lieutenant and he died 2 weeks later to be buried in St Andrew's Church. Another man was an ensign, Ferdinando Grimes, who was killed during the actual battle. So officers as well as men died fighting over here. And we have one officer captured by the Royalists. His name is William Harker. He was a captain, lieutenant, or lieutenant captain. He was captured by the Royalists and taken away. So the Royalists did have time to get their prisoners back. But we've got no list of Roundhead prisoners, just the killed and wounded, which makes it interesting. You might want to know what happened to the Royalist earthwork after they abandoned it. Well, the Roundheads came out, levelled much of it down. And then the defenders had second thoughts. They thought, what if the Royalists use this area again to threaten our outer line, but with a much more substantial force? So they came out and rebuilt the fort, made it longer, stronger and higher, and renamed it Little Magdalen Fort. Now, I'm not 100% sure this is it, this area, but it makes sense to me, because if you look at the lay of the land, it's ripe to be a fort, and it's in the right area. HOUNDISCOMBE Woods down the hill, not very far from the Roundhead line. You can't really tell these days because the ground was disturbed during the Second World War when they built an air raid shelter here. But I did find clay pipe bowls in that area dating from the 1600s. So that's what makes me think this is the site of the Little Magdalen Fort and the Royalist earthwork that was put up before.
And the view is superb from here.
Yeah.
Take away the houses.
And you can see right down to HOUNDISCOMBE Woods
You can see
and
a
Mutley.
very long way.
Yeah.
And the shape of it is so right, isn't it?
It is. Although there were no set shapes, they made it to the contours of the fort to go with the landscape. And to me, I've always thought since I started my project that this was a fort from the Civil War.
And this fits the land.
It does fit, and the positioning. I've walked it. I've walked the site, come down HOUNDISCOMBE Woods that were, walked up, and this is exactly where it would be. It's within pistol shot of the Roundhead lines. Another good reason to think this is a fort is because after the Civil War, these old fortifications, earthworks, were still around for approximately 200 years, and people didn't build on them. The ones they did build on, unfortunately, are gone. But this area was a mound of earth for those 200 years, and people, especially in those days, horses and carts, will cut through areas, green areas, they even do it today, cut across fields, rather than go a little bit further on and use a road. So they've probably used these trails for the 200 years after the war, leaving this earthwork here to just decay naturally. When they build houses, they build them on the sides of trails. Trails became roads. So that's another reason to suppose that this could be the site. Not saying it is, but I think for the last 40 years I've thought it had some connection. Just think though, when you walk through this little park today, come and sit in the sun, what happened here on December the 21st, 1643, when several hundred men slaughtered each other